Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well today. This feels really bizarre for me. This is the first video that I've just kind of sat down and I was going to say freestyled. The first video that I've sat down without planning too much to film at my new house. I obviously filmed my moving vlog, but I'd structured and kind of thought about how I was going to do that. And this is very much just kind of like a go with the flow, fun, planty morning. And I've spent the first 20 minutes of it trying to figure out how I'm going to film this video. I don't really have a sense of my setup yet. And so, I'll flip you around so you can see. But I've just got like light boxes and grow lights and all sorts behind me to try and create a little bit of light because it's actually a very gloomy, dismal day here. But I wanted you to be able to see my plant room behind me because it's coming together so nicely. And oh my God, it is just such a beautiful space that I feel so proud of. Like these last couple of weeks, everything coming together, this is an area of the house that when I come into it, I just feel like I feel recharged and I feel excited, and I've got so many plans for planty things that I want to do in this space. I've just, as I said in my moving vlog, I have just loved making the house planty so far, but like in a way that also is a little bit more practical than how I was doing with the flats, because I haven't got things like flopping in my face all the time. I'll talk about setup and house things as we get into the video, but yeah, today I've got a couple of plant things that in fact I wanted to do before I moved house. They were on, or have been on my list for quite a while, but I didn't want to jump in and do anything too major with my plants before I moved, because obviously it's a massive period of adjustment for them anyway. Doing anything like big repots or moss pole changes or anything that can shake them up a little bit themselves before also changing their environments can potentially send plants into shock. So I was like, I will hold out for a couple of weeks, let them settle in, and then assuming there are no issues, which touch wood, so far there haven't been, then I can get on and I can do them. So yeah, both of the main, there's in fact a few things that I want to do today, but both of the main things that I want to do are also with quite big plants. And as I say, I've actually got the space to be able to do that now. So yeah, that's the plan for today. I also asked you guys to send me some questions, so I thought we could just have a little repot and chat, Q&A, catch up kind of time together. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name's Claire and this is Yoli. I make videos all about houseplant care, sharing tips and tricks I've learned over the years to help keep your plants happy and healthy. And yeah, as I say, I'm very much going with the flow this morning. I'm just finding my feet in the new space, but I'm so excited to get stuck in and start doing some planty things. So yes, I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. So the plant that I think I'm going to start with today is my Rhaphidophora foraminifera, which I am currently growing just there. I've positioned one of my Sansi grow lights down so that this one is getting good light even on days like today when it is very dark. In fact, I'll turn the grow lights off in here just so that you can see this room on a dark day, because obviously it does have lovely Velux windows and it does have, I'm just going to turn the lights off and show you. So yeah, obviously I've still got my ones on the shelf there, but this is kind of the light that this room gets on a dark English day, which we get lots of. So it's not maybe as bright as you might think. Also, this is, oh my goodness, I think this is east facing. So it gets, in theory, sun in the morning, but because our garden is like so high, our garden is actually higher than our house. Annoyingly, it blocks a little bit of that light. But yeah, I am happy with the grow light setup that I've done, and I think it is doing the trick. I feel like this is one of those days where I'm just going to get really distracted and just be stopping every 5 minutes because I want to talk about things and show you things. But going back to the plant for a moment, the Rhaphidophora foraminifera, this is one that I showed you in my growth comparison video that I did a couple of weeks ago, I think it went up on my channel. And since then even, my God, this leaf has barely finished hardening off and it's already pushing out a new one just there. And this is one that has been growing in the same way for, in fact, in the same pot, I think since I got the plant, which was well over a year ago now. It is desperately in need of a pot upgrade. And it's also in need of a moss pole upgrade because if you look here, it is growing off that pole like crazy, but it's also insanely rooted into this pole. So I've been looking at this and I've been thinking, what is the best thing to do here? Should I just extend this little moss pole or should I maybe try and get a bigger moss pole? What do I do basically? And one of the things that in fact a few of you asked, but I'll cover it now, a few of you were saying like, what's going on with the cupboard of chaos and like, how are you organising all your plant stuff? And the answer is I'm not. I will be at some point, but currently there's still a load of things that need unpacking. We've got boxes, we've got like big storage container type things, lots of things that are not organised because we're getting understairs storage in a few weeks time and then that will turn into cupboard of chaos. I'm going to try and keep it a bit more organised this time. But yeah, right now I've got loads of things that I'm just like, I don't know where things are. So I'm making do with what I've got. And in the move and uncovering things, I found this moss pole here, which is obviously a lot bigger than the one that it's on. And I do find these ones quite easy to extend. So I think I might rehydrate the moss that's in this moss pole and try and use that. I'm going to keep this plant in semi-hydro just because it seems really happy growing that way. It also is just such a low maintenance way of growing for me. I find it so easy. The roots are going crazy like this and yeah, it feels like the right thing to do. But as I say, it is so ridiculously rooted into the moss pole that it's on right now. I kind of feel like in order to get it off this moss pole, I might need to like chop the plant off. So I've brought my wire cutters over and I thought that's probably what I want to do. It's probably going to be quite messy as well. So I'm gonna tilt the camera down and just do another floor repot because it is unbelievably nice to have this space now to be able to do this. Honestly, this is like the biggest luxury for me. For the last 2 years, if I've wanted to do anything like this, it would be like, right, clear the coffee table, move the sofas back, pick up the rug, like get a potting mat, and now I can just kind of, oh God, mind you, this isn't going to be easy, but I can just kind of set up and go in this planty space, which is just the biggest luxury, honestly. But the first question that I had was, what were all of the clues you left? What did they mean? So if you have watched my other videos and have been watching to the end of my last, I think 8 or 9 videos, I have been leaving like little clues and like little hints as to what, oh my God, this is rooty, as to what was to come. And basically, I think the ones that might need kind of decoding are turning over a new leaf, that was one. Then there was another one, putting down stakes, and then putting down new roots. I think those are all of the ones that would need like explaining. I had a lot of fun doing that, and honestly, I feel like if anything big in my life ever happens again, I'm going to leave clues again because it was so fun watching you guys in the comments, some of you that have kind of watched to the end and had started to figure it out. There were lots of different theories about what could be happening as well, and I don't know, it made me so happy and it made me really excited about everything. But the first question, and I thought this was quite a fitting one to start with, someone said, having set up plant spaces in multiple homes now, how would you design your ideal plant room? Yeah, I absolutely love that question. So I think, obviously, like when I first started making YouTube videos, I was making them from my bedroom floor. Literally, my phone was like balanced on my bed. And then I moved all my plants to my mum's conservatory, to my basement bedroom, to my old flat, and now obviously to here. I think, firstly, I'm going to bang on about the floor again, but if you're able to get a floor that is like wipeable, then as silly as that sounds, it's just going to make your life so much easier. I had oak floors at the flat and they looked lovely, but for not even just like watering purposes, but like plants such as alocasia that kind of, I don't know the singular word for it, but I guess guttate, that let go of a lot of water through their leaves. You often see lots of droplets of water on their leaves. And when that drips on the floor over time, it is going to stain and it is going to be so frustrating to try and get rid of. Also, obviously, wood floors look lovely, but they scratch. So yeah, like, not that I'm saying I've got the perfect plant room now, because there are even now things that I would tweak and change if I wanted to create like the ideal space. But this is a lino floor, it's plastic, it looks like wood, but it's not actually wood. And oh my goodness, if you are planning out and designing a plant room from scratch, 100% I would recommend it. I actually didn't know before we moved in here, but this room also has underfloor heating, which is the biggest luxury, honestly. It means that I can kind of, to a certain extent, keep this space set at a different temperature to the rest of the house. So if we don't want to be running the central heating in every single room of the house, this space kind of has the ability to be bumped up a few degrees because of that. Obviously, I have only been living here for a couple of weeks so far, and there's a high chance that underfloor heating is going to be very expensive to run. So we're doing lots of tests and we're kind of monitoring things, and it might not be sustainable to run underfloor heating all the time, but at the moment, that's something that I would say is a massive bonus. And then obviously, like, lights, like, you don't have to have like massive south facing windows in order to have a cool plant space. You can do like a decent grow light setup. I've done a lot with grow lights in this space, and yeah, so far it seems to be working well. Obviously, as I say, this is such early days I'm talking about, but I think just space and wall space as well. Oh my goodness. Coming from a flat where I couldn't really have any shelves on the wall because all of the ceilings were slanted, to now being able to have like upright places for my plants, it makes such a difference. So I think those would probably be, if I had to say, like the top things. Although I haven't really been able to use it yet as well, I think having access to outside is going to be really, really useful because we've got an outside tap. I'm thinking that now if I need to pest treat a plant or if I need to do anything that's really, really messy, I can just take it outside. I'm sure that is going to be huge once I kind of find my flow in this space and get used to doing things. But yeah, I would also be really interested to know what you guys think, because as I will continue to say, this space is brand new to me. Like, it seems like I'm very much looking at it through rose-tinted glasses, I'm sure, at the moment. Like, I haven't had the chance to experience just like daily life in this plant space yet. Like, a couple of weeks are not representative of what it will actually be like. So yeah, what do you think are some pros and cons of your plant spaces, and like things that have worked really well and things that, if you were designing your own plant room from scratch, things that you would do first? Do comment down below and let me know, because I would love to know. And then somebody said, how do you make pon? Don't have soil ninja in Canada and Lechuza is too pricey. I have made videos on this before, but you can get, I believe, internationally quite easily, you can get pumice, lava rock and zeolite, and that is essentially the main components of something like Lechuza pon, and you can just mix it together yourself. I am always like, I don't do like strategic ratios, I'm very much a do things from sight, but I would probably go in with more pumice than anything else and less zeolite. So probably like, I don't know, 6 cups of pumice, 4 cups of lava rock and 1 cup of zeolite or something like that. Just because I think that kind of helps to mimic what Lechuza pon is. And then, yeah, obviously you can, if you want to, add in things like slow release fertiliser. I personally don't do that. I go in with a hydroponic or a fertiliser that can be used for hydroponic growing. I've said it before, I like using liquid gold leaf, but you don't have to use that. You can also get some types of, I think it's inorganic bonsai mix that are essentially like this, well, not the same thing, but like very, very similar to the Soil Ninja mix or Lechuza pon and stuff like that. I can't remember the name of it, but again, I spoke about it in a video a few months ago. I think it's something like, I'll put it on the screen if I can find a bit, like Mr. Jack's bonsai mix or something like that, which I believe they do make in Canada, because I think I spoke about that in the video. I'll put it on the screen. But yeah, anything like that will do the trick. Oh my goodness, these roots are insane. I could totally, I don't know if I have the nerve to do it today. I could totally do a chop and extend on this plant at this stage, because if I just peel that back and show you just how rooty that is, I can totally just propagate this plant. I don't want to do too much too soon. That's the thing. Yoli, good girl. Yeah, I don't want to do too much too soon. I don't want to disrupt things more than I need to. Hello, baby girl. Oh, come on then, in you come. There's actually space for you to be able to be here without destroying everything. Isn't that nice? Yes, it is. I know a lot of you have been asking how Yoli's getting on, and she is doing like unbelievably well. She is such a happy girl. She's sleeping in our bed again every night, because obviously we've been on the mezzanine for the past year and she hasn't been able to sleep in with us. So it's really nice having her back on the bed. And yeah, like she's been just like chilling in my plant space when I've been watering and stuff, and like her tail isn't destroying things because there is a little bit more space to manoeuvre. Good girl. I'm always thinking I should bring her bed in here or something so she can just come and chill while I'm filming. I know, we haven't done this before, have we? No. And yeah, the other thing that you guys are saying is she enjoying the garden? And so she is enjoying the garden, but weirdly, because it's a plant, we don't eat this. Weirdly, she's been really reluctant to go out in the back garden. Like, I've had to really kind of like pull her to get her out there. I don't know if it's because she's just not used to a back door, as weird as that sounds. But also currently the garden isn't secure. So all of the fences in the garden are very, very low. They only come up to about like there on me, and Yoli could absolutely hop that. There's gaps underneath some of the fences. There's cats on both sides, and Yoli's so bad with cats. So currently she's going out there accompanied on a lead. But hopefully by the time spring comes, we can have a chat with our neighbours and we can secure things and she can have a little bit more freedom, because it's such a lovely garden space for her to be able to play in. There's loads of lovely smells, there's loads of like little places that she can just go and explore. So yeah, oh, it's honestly, it's just a dream. Like before, if she needed to go out in the night, or Yoli, go to your bed, please. To your bed. Good girl. We're trying to keep her off the new sofas. It's not going particularly well, but yeah, before, if she needed to go out in the night, or just if I needed to take her out in general, it would be the case of like putting her harness on, strapping her up, taking her down across the road to the local car park, because we didn't have a garden and she wouldn't go on the balcony. So yeah, life has just suddenly become like a million times easier in that sense. Like she needed to go out in the night the other night, and I was just like, oh cool, I'll just put my slippers down and I'll just take her out to the back garden. And it was just, it's just so much easier, honestly, so much easier. But yeah, well, what was the next question? How do you decide where to put a specific plant to make it work in the space? So obviously I've been doing a lot of this recently, because in case I hadn't mentioned, I've just moved house. Sorry, I know I'm banging on about this so much. It's just very much what is happening in my life at the moment. So the most important thing I would say typically to think about is things like light. If, I've said this so many times before as well, but if you have got a new plant and you just want to kind of settle it into a new space, I would always assume that that plant has probably been grown in a grow house, assuming we're talking about like a tropical plant and not a desert cactus or something like that. I would assume that it's been grown in bright and direct light most of the time, very high levels of humidity, pretty high levels of heat. And I would always try and just kind of replicate that to the best of your ability in your home or an area of your home as you kind of settle your plant in. For example, this space here, this is a really lovely kind of acclimation zone for my plants because obviously I've got my grow light set up, I've got my humidifier which isn't running right now, but like that helps to just boost the humidity in here, it's fairly warm, all of that sort of stuff. So then if I wanted to then, for example, start a plant off in here and once it was settled in, move it to my living room, then I would probably move it by like the window of my living room and then gradually move it back. And if you're not quite sure about lighting for your plants, I know that is something that can be very confusing. I've got one somewhere. Yeah, here we go. I would recommend getting something like a light meter. I got this one here on Amazon. I think I'm right in saying it was about 20 quid. I'll link it down below. You can also get apps on your phone that do a similar reading. I don't want to say they're 100% accurate compared to an actual light meter, but I don't think they're bad per se. And that way you can just kind of like test the levels and see what's going to work for certain plants. You can just look up online, like translate this to that in terms of like what equals bright and direct light. And I will usually use that as a very strong guide for certain plants and be like, okay, I think this one long term would survive here. How can I ease it into life in that spot? Like gradually, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I feel like that might have been a very waffly answer. But then again, the other thing to think about is like when it comes to like conditions for plants. I was saying this in a Patreon video the other day, but for example, I have created a space. I have turned my bedroom space currently into my cacti and succulents area because I've got lots of cacti and succulents that probably wouldn't be that happy down here in this space at the moment because I am trying to kind of really up the humidity. They're ones that don't particularly like lots of humidity. They can be prone to rotting, stuff like that. So yeah, I've grouped them all together on my windowsill. So they're all getting pretty good light, but I don't need to run humidifiers or anything like that in the bedroom. And yeah, just kind of taking things slowly and monitoring your plants. Like, I know it's so easy when you fall in love with plants to be like, I want to get all of them. And if things are going well for the first couple of weeks, then you think, it's going fine, I'm going to get more. I really would encourage you to take things slowly, and I know I haven't always taken that advice myself, but by taking things a little bit gradually, it does just allow you to be able to really look at what's going on with your plants, and if something does start to go wrong, deal with it, as opposed to suddenly be overwhelmed by like 20 plants going wrong. Yeah, that is enough to put anyone off plant care, I think, if all of a sudden you're dealing with all the drama. So yeah, slow and steady. And I think as well, just accepting the fact that things are going to go wrong from time to time. Like, things go wrong for me all the time, and I literally do things with plants pretty much 90% of my day. Like, I'm always looking at my plants and I'm always seeing what's going on, and I'm always trying to do all the right things, and even putting all the measures in place, things still go wrong for me. So yeah, I'm by no means an expert, but I'm just saying, don't see those moments as failures, because they are just things that happen to all of us. Do you have any plants for the garden yet? Oh my goodness, I had so many garden related questions from you guys, and honestly, I don't know anything about outdoor gardening. I really don't. And like, this might sound silly, but I don't even know if I'll like it. It feels like a completely different world for me to houseplants. Like, I'm excited about it and I really would like to give it a go, but one of the things I love about indoor gardening is the fact that you are in control of everything. Like, you control the light, you control the water, you control everything. And lots of people have said to me, oh, but outdoor gardening's great because you don't need to worry about the watering, it'll just water itself. And I'm like, that would stress me out. What if something starts to go wrong? And I'm like, what if it's something to do with water? But I don't know because I don't know when it's rained. So yeah, the prospect is exciting, but I just find it really daunting. The garden, as I say, so it's east facing, and the bit that you probably saw in my moving vlog, the little bit outside the window here, that is like a patch of grass. And then there's steps going up to the net, in fact, above the patch of grass. I'm going to give you a tour of this at some point, so I'll just briefly explain. Above the patch of grass, there's a raised bed that currently just has like what looks like a dead bush in it and like not very exciting things. Then there's a decked area on the level up, and then there's another level at the top that is kind of shadowed by this massive magnolia tree. So it doesn't get, I can't imagine during the summer it's going to get like really intense sun. A couple of you were saying things like kale and peppers and stuff like that would be fun to grow, and some of you were like, you should get the seeds started now, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't even know how to do that. So yeah, it is going to be such a massive learning curve for me. I'd really like to give it a go. And yeah, like I know that my channel has been so heavily focused on houseplants. I can't imagine this ever turning into an outdoor gardening channel, if I'm being completely honest. I might be wrong about that, but I can't imagine that happening. But if I do start doing more outdoor gardening-y things, I will absolutely make some content on it for those of you that want to see it, and I'll do my best as well to kind of relate it to like things you could do with smaller spaces. Like, for example, if you've just got a windowsill or if you've just got a balcony or something like that, I'll try and make it as applicable as I possibly can, so that no matter what kind of space you're in, you can kind of, oh, something just pinged over there. Yeah, you can maybe try it yourself as well. Because I know I have got houseplants, like for example the Coleus amboinicus, the Cuban oregano Mexican mint, the one that I've banged on so many times about, and that is an indoor plant, but it's one that I cook with. Like, I chop it up and I throw it into salads, I use it in stir fries, and I have really enjoyed actually having a houseplant that isn't just like basil or oregano, like something, not that that's not fun, but there is something that is visually a beautiful, satisfying plant to grow, but also something that I feel like, yeah, I can use in the kitchen. What am I saying? Yeah, so basically I think I would enjoy doing some vegetable growing. I think that's where I was going with this. But we have got a couple of hanging baskets, so I definitely want to get some nice flowers for the garden in the spring and stuff like that. Again, I know I've got some keen outdoor gardeners that watch my videos. Please let me know any suggestions, like genuinely any suggestions at all. I'd love to just know some of the things that you enjoy growing, even if they're things that end up not being for me. Like, I'm just very keen to know, so please let me know down in the comments. Any tips, any suggestions, anything like that, I would be really, really grateful for. So yeah, keep them coming, please. But so with this plant, I've just spent the last however long trying to get it off its moss pole, and I've cut away as much as I possibly can, and that's what it's looking like. I don't want to break up all the root system too much because, as I say, I don't want to throw the plant into shock. So I think, oh, getting it onto this moss pole, I'm like, how do I do this now? Because obviously this is all like a sealed grid, and without really breaking up the roots, how do I go about this? What's the best way of doing this? One thing that would make life much easier right now, but I don't know where it is some of that like garden Velcro. I know I've got a ton of it, but I haven't seen it since I've moved. If I had that, I think I would probably, and in fact I might be able to find some string or something and like fashion a version of this. I think I might chop the plastic just at the bottom of the pole, which in fact I think is here. Yeah, chop the plastic there and just kind of slot this section into it and then tie it to the pole and let it continue to climb. Does that seem like a good idea? I think it probably does. Yeah, I see that as the best option. So I'm gonna just go and rehydrate this moss pole. In fact, I will bring you with me. I'm going to bring you to the kitchen and I will show you the Coleus amboinicus that I was just talking to you about. So, yeah, that's the Coleus amboinicus just there, and it is going absolutely crazy. Again, this is another space where I've put a lot of succulents and things that don't need ridiculously high levels of humidity. And yeah, like I say, good light. It's obviously not getting great light today because it is very cloudy. But yeah, typically everything will, I hope, be happy here. But yeah, I'm just going to rehydrate this moss pole and then find some string. So I couldn't find any string, but I have got some wool, and wool is obviously not a long-term solution to anything that's going to be coming into contact with moisture because it is just going to probably rot. But for the meantime, for God, words today. For now, until I have a little bit more organisation as to where everything is, I think it'll be fine. So I also know that obviously, although this moss pole is bigger than the one it was on, it's only going to be big enough for this plant for probably the next month or so. But as I say, these ones I do just find quite easy to extend. And these are actually just ones that I get on Amazon. They're just transparent, kind of put it together yourself kind of moss poles. I just buy the sphagnum moss to go in them, and they work really, really well. I used to exclusively make all of my own moss poles, and I still do from time to time, but I've got to say, actually, I do find it cheaper and easier to just buy, sometimes to just buy things like this, as opposed to keeping loads and loads of like the, what do you call it, like metal chicken wire and stuff like that. I just find it a more practical way of doing things. I would love to say that like DIY is always the best way to go. But yeah, right now I am happy doing things this way. So, okay, I think I'm just kind of laying it on the moss pole like that. I think I'm going to do what I said, and I'm going to just chop away the middle section just here so that I can like get, can you see what I'm doing quickly? I'm just gonna wiggle you so you can see a little bit better. There we go. Yeah, so that I can just kind of slot what is already there into it, and then I can tie it onto the moss pole. That feels like the best way of doing things. And the next question was, how have you and Ross found decorating your house together? Oh, you know what? We've absolutely loved it. Like, I think we're quite lucky in the sense that although we don't have the exact same style and like vision for things, I would say it's difficult to like describe what you think your style is, isn't it? Style. But I think if you had to put a label on it, I'm probably more like bohemian, eclectic kind of vibes, and he is more kind of, I want to say industrial. So yeah, like designing our house has kind of been a mix of all of those things, which actually I think works quite well. Like we've got elements and like different zones in the house that are more him and other bits that are more me. Like, for example, goes without saying, the space we're in right now is pretty much all me. Like, I've wanted to keep things quite like quite white and minimal and kind of clean feeling, but with just like a ton of plants. And then he's actually got a space upstairs, which is our spare room / man cave, and he has completely turned that room into like nerdy Ross zone. Like he's got his weird pictures on the wall, he's got his Funko Pops, he's got loads of his weird creations. And I think it's really important to have, like personally, I think it's really important to have a balance of things like that when you live with someone else, because I really like having spaces that feel like mine, and I want him to have spaces that feel like his as well, but also then like having things like the living room and the dining room that are just merged, both of us. So yeah, it has been really, really fun. It's funny, there's some things that he just doesn't give a toss about and I really do, that I've been a bit weird about. Like for example, earlier today I was like, I really want to get a what do you call it, like a lampshade for the main light in the living room, because at the moment it's just grey and I don't know why. It's just one of these things in the space that is just jarring me. I feel like I have been so much better with colour in this space, which is a huge thing for me, because for a while, if there was any colour, or not any colour, but like certain colours, like for example, like pinks and purples and like things that I found quite jarring in a space that I was in, I would find it almost like overstimulating. I would really struggle to, as stupid as it sounds, I would really struggle to like operate normally without just seeing that thing. I've got so much better with that, I think, over the last couple of years. I think probably because Ross is such a colourful boy, it has in some ways kind of helped. But yeah, obviously we've gone in with like green sofas in this space, and like we're throwing in lots of little splashes of colour here and there. I'm really liking like splashes of yellow and stuff like that in there as well, kind of like mustardy yellow. And so yeah, it's been really fun just kind of feeling like we're creating a space together, because obviously Ross moved into the flat and we made that as ours as we possibly could, but I'd still been there for 1.5 years. I'd still kind of put my stamp on it, and he kind of fitted into that. So this is really nice, feeling like we are doing things together more. Also, I just want to be aware that I'm not like chopping out all of this moss pole. That's what I'm doing. I've kind of just like chopped out a section in the middle that I'm either going to take some of this moss out of, or I'm just going to try and like separate like that and slot the other bit in. The one thing that we had no idea about before we moved in here, and it's actually, right now actually, it's, well, for me, not too much of a pain, but although we've got way more space in this place, we actually realised that we can hear each other so much. So like whenever Ross is on a call, his voice like booms through the ceiling and I can hear it really loudly in here. He can probably hear every word I'm saying right now. And to be honest, like it's fine, we're making it work, but if at some point I need to do like audio recording or something like that, then it is going to be a little bit tricky. So yeah, he's bought some like soundproofing foam that he's going to put in the corners of his room. I think maybe at some point we might think about getting like a really thick carpet put in his office, because his office, although it's not right above this space, it's above the dining space, which is just behind where the camera is at the moment. So if any of you like happen to know a lot about soundproofing, by all means please hit us with suggestions. Like it's definitely got better since we've moved furniture in. Initially it was so loud and boomy, I was like, I can hear every word he's saying. But yeah, that's just been something that we've had to think about a little bit, and we'll continue to try and just work on so that we can both work well in the space together. Because yeah, he's had like customer meetings and stuff like that, like confidential things, and if he can hear me downstairs being like, this is what you do with this plant, then I feel like it might be a little bit distracting. Okay, this feels like it's is working quite well actually. So I'm just going to tie this on with wool for now. Hopefully I will be replacing the wool with the Velcro stuff in the next few days. I know it's here somewhere. One of you said, how can I provide humidity in my room without a humidifier? In brackets, mushroom fear. Yeah, so if you're trying to increase the humidity, whether or not you've got a humidifier, the mushroom fear is valid. Fortunately, I've never suffered with that, although I do think I've been quite lucky to live in spaces that have maybe had a little bit better ventilation. I think if you are running a humidifier, also if you I can't tell, I've got a really like scratchy throat and it keeps like going a bit croaky. Yeah, if you have got a humidifier, then I would recommend, if you don't have particularly good ventilation, not like sticking it in a corner somewhere, maybe putting a fan behind it or something like that, so that it kind of circulates a little bit better. And just making sure that in general your room has got good airflow. The main reason that people have issues like, I mean, indoor fungi is pretty extreme, but mold and stuff like that, which I mean, essentially is I guess a form of fungi. Yeah, the reason that people get that is often because the airflow isn't good enough and it is just like humidity is just building up. So keeping windows open, like as I've just said, running fans, and also just monitoring your humidity levels and making sure that you're not keeping things too high, because in some spaces, like for example, if you've got a carpeted room and you're constantly keeping the humidity at 80%, it's just not good. Like that's not going to do great things for a home environment. If you do want to be keeping the humidity at that kind of level, then personally I would probably recommend creating some kind of cabinet setup or something that you can contain the humidity in, that doesn't have to be like filling the rest of your space. And in fact, if you are worried about that in general, that could be an option. I've said it so many times before, but you don't need to get like crazily expensive cabinets. Like the first decent cabinet setup I ever did was built using a cabinet that I found for like 20 quid on eBay. But yeah, if you want to just raise the humidity in general without having a humidifier, besides just like grouping lots of your plants together, things like growing in semi-hydro actually does help to raise the humidity, because obviously you've got a reservoir of water that is just sat in your room that is just going to evaporate. For that same reason, things like pebble trays can be quite a good way to raise the humidity. I was talking to a friend the other day about misting and whether or not that was effective at raising the humidity levels, and oh god, it's been something that has kind of been talked about for ages in the plant community, and nobody ever seems to be able to settle on a yes or no answer. The answer, I believe, is that yes, it will temporarily raise the humidity levels. Like if I was to mist this whole room now for the next kind of 20 minutes, half an hour, as the water that I just sprayed or misted as it was evaporating, then yes, the humidity in this space would be a little bit higher. However, it's not going to take long for that to evaporate, and once that's done, then you're just going to be back to square one. So typically I find it better to have like even a small humidifier running like more consistently, so that even if you're just bringing it up a few percent, it's more consistent for your plants. That is what I would say. And I don't run my humidifier all the time. Like my humidifier is not running right now, but also I do recognise the fact that I'm in a space where like I don't need to worry about carpet or anything like that right here, so I am luckier in that way. But as I say, the key with anything humidity-wise is always going to be airflow and good circulation. Okay, right. Cool, so I've tied that the best I can to its new moss pole. I will just water through the moss pole again once I've repotted the plant, and hopefully the aerial roots in the pole will start to kind of expand and go into the new pole. And then it should, in theory, grip on by itself, but I will still do some of that Velcro when I can find it. And then semi-hydro for the bottom. I brought this pot over, and I think this is going to be much more suited to this plant size-wise. It does need more space to grow. So yeah, again, I'm going to grab the semi-hydro. But then the next question was, do you have any other hobbies you obsess over as much as plants? Oh God, I do. I go through, this is a classic ADHD thing, I know, but I go through phases of obsessing over usually crafty things. I will go through like insane phases of like just doing one thing and like loving every minute of it, and then stepping away from it and not going back to it for like a year. And I said recently actually that I really wanted to learn to crochet, and I am learning to crochet. So in fact this is fun. I've actually just almost finished my first crochet project. I'll grab it and I'll show you it actually. So I have crocheted what will be, I hope, a cushion cover. I've got some like cushion stuffing arriving today and some like fleece lining, and I'm going to put a fleece backing on it, and I'm going to stuff my cushion tonight. So I will post a picture of it over on Instagram or something when it's done. But yeah, crocheting is something that I have got into very recently. I've always loved knitting. Crochet has been a whole other realm of new for me, and like there's something like, for example, that I found really satisfying to do because it's very repetitive and it felt just very satisfying to watch it come together. But things like doing a granny square, can't do it yet, cannot do it to save my life. So yeah, like I mean, crafty things, art and crafty things, I would say are my other big passion alongside plants. And I think, like, me and Ross often say that we're very lucky in the sense that both of us really enjoy that sort of thing. Like, obviously we've done Comic-Con together for the last couple of years, and we love making our costumes for that. And Ross obviously got his little rosters and all his creations that he makes. And it's so fun to have found a partner that I can do that sort of stuff with, because a lot of people would just see that as very boring, and for me it is so therapeutic. In the same way, actually, as plant care is, it's very still, it's very just gentle, and like, I don't know, I just really, the older I get, the more I just love cozy home-based activities that I can just sit and like potter and do whilst being comfy and whilst having a cup of coffee. And yeah, like I know, like Claire 10 years ago would have been like, God, you are so sad. But that is just what I love doing most of the time. Not always, like I do still go out on occasion. But yeah, that is just my happy place most of the time. So yeah, crochet things. I have got so many crochet projects that I would like to try. I want to make a sunflower blanket. I know a couple of people on my Patreon have done that recently, and I've looked at those and I've been like, oh, they look amazing. So that is something that I'd really, really, really like to do. I've got like bags that I want to make, and I'm constantly saving ideas and things, and but yeah, that is something that I also really enjoy. So what about you guys? Have you got any other hobbies outside of plants? Or anything that like feeds into plants as well? I know obviously like outdoor gardening, indoor gardening. But yeah, like I found it quite funny actually. The plant community do also seem generally very crafty and very creative. Like when I first said on Instagram I'm gonna like try crocheting, I had hundreds of messages from you guys like sending advice and sending tips and things that you found really useful, and I was just completely overwhelmed by the support of the community, but also how many of you also loved it. So that's really fun. I find that really fun. But yes, that for now is my Rhaphidophora foraminifera. I will give it a good water through and I will fill up its reservoir after I finish filming this video. And I'm just going to get the dustpan and brush and just sweep everything, or in fact, you know what? I'm going to push everything here and I will deal with it after this video. And then the next plant that I want to do something to is my Anthurium pallidiflorum, which doesn't she look glorious up here? Honestly, this plant is just the apple of my eye. I love it so much. One of you asked what my favourite plant was, and I do think, although it's really hard to just pick one, if I had to say, I would probably say Anthurium pallidiflorum. And as you can see, she is also producing pollen at the moment. So I'm going to collect the pollen. I did actually try pollinating this plant. I think about 3 or 4 days after I moved in here, she suddenly went into the female stage and started producing stigmatic fluid. And I was like, oh, I do have some pollen to hand. But yeah, I just keep pollen in a little freezer bag like this. And this here is Clarinervium pollen and pallidiflorum pollen. So yeah, I've just got a little brush that I use for it. I label it as well, not well. But yeah, then all of the pollen, you might be able to see on camera, just like a very fine dust. I'm not sure what you can see. But yeah, I'm just gonna brush as much of the pollen into there as I possibly can. There's not a lot today actually, I have been collecting it for the last few days. But then hopefully when it gives me another inflorescence, I could maybe try pollinating it again. Or cross-pollinating with another type of Anthurium, depending on which one gives me an inflorescence next. I can tell this one actually is starting to give me another one from this leaf. So yeah. It would be so much fun if pollination was successful with this plant. I would love, 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 love to get some berries from it. The only thing I'm a little bit concerned about is whether or not the foliage would be massively impacted, because obviously producing berries does take so much energy from the plant. I don't want to jeopardise it in any way because I do love the way that it's growing, but it would be so fun to pollinate. But this plant, all I want to do is basically just give it a bigger pot. It's just a bit of a fiddly plant because it is so big now. Oh, in fact, let's just lay its leaves there. But yeah, that is the size of the pot it's currently in, which is teeny tiny. And it's just been resting inside this terracotta pot, just basically to kind of give it a little bit of strength so it doesn't tip off the shelf. But I think I might actually, I know using terracotta for an Anthurium might seem like a weird choice because obviously terracotta is a porous material. It does typically draw quite a lot of the moisture out of the soil. But if I'm going to be watering this plant a lot, I think I might just put it straight into terracotta. I don't know if this is a decision I'm going to regret. I think for now, because this is what I've got, I'm going to give it a go. I can always, of course, change things out for this plant further down the line if I decide that this isn't right. But for the time being, I just want it to have a bit more space to breathe around the roots. So I'm going to put some orchid bark at the bottom. In fact, I'm going to get some netting from the onion to just put over the drainage hole, because otherwise everything is going to fall straight through. Yeah, this is the onion netting that I know I've spoken about in lots of videos before. Just the stuff that onions come in here in the UK. And I just put it over. Yoli, now's not a good time to be coming through. Put it over the drainage hole so that stuff doesn't fall through. But yeah, then I'm just going to put some orchid bark on the bottom layer. And then I don't think, oh, this is finicky, because obviously this has got such long beautiful leaves. I don't want to snap them accidentally. I'm hoping this will just kind of lift out of its pot. A lot of you also are asking for like updates on specific plants. Like I've got someone asking for an update on my Delta Force, on my Welwitschia mirabilis, my Musa Florida as well. I'm gonna do a plant updates video probably in the next few days, just because obviously with moving there has been a lot of things going on with my plants, and I honestly have got so many updates that I could give you, so I'm gonna do a specific video on that. Oh my goodness, this is just solid. Come on. There we go. Nice. Okay, this has got great roots, but I'm not gonna break them up too much. I'm just gonna pack, or I say pack, loosely pack. Ooh. Ah. Stay. Some Anthurium mix around them. And I was very kindly sent a load of soil from Cybotanica just before Christmas, and I've still got lots left, so I'm just going to use their mix. Annoyingly, all of our scissors seem to have been lost in the move, and I think the one pair is upstairs in Ross's office, so this is my wire cutters for everything. But yeah, this should do the job. But one of you said, what are your views on growing alocasia? Are they easy or hard to grow for you? So again, I've said it so many times before, although there are certain types of alocasia that I find easier and more difficult than others, I nowadays grow all of my alocasias exclusively in semi-hydroponic growing, whether that's Lechuza Pon or if that's like a chunky mix from something like Soil Ninja. That is the best and most effective way that I found to grow them. And it's just a way of growing them that has meant that I really don't typically have that many issues with them. Some of them, like I would say the biggest issue that I have with certain alocasias is pests. Like they can be very pest prone plants. Like, oh my God, my alocasia portadora, like that one was a magnet for like every possible pest there was. But on the whole, I just find them so much easier to monitor in semi-hydro, and they are a genus of plant, like when I've grown them in soil over the years in the past, not that I found like ridiculously difficult, but like I have found them more challenging. And then when I discovered semi-hydro growing for them, I was like, oh my God, I was like, life has just got so much easier. And now, as I say, I do have pretty much all of them in semi-hydro. So yeah, that is what I would always personally recommend. I know the last time I banged on about semi-hydroponic growing for alocasia, I had this like essay of a comment from someone being like, you just work for the semi-hydro company and like all this sort of stuff. I'm not making any money from promoting semi-hydroponic growing. It is honestly just something that has made my life much easier, and I would not be talking about it if it hadn't. Yeah, I just find it just makes everything easier. So yeah, that's what I'd recommend. Also, that was a simple, quick, easy repot, but one that I do hope is going to help keep this plant much happier now. So again, I'm going to just put this to one side and I'll give it a really good water through before I put it back on the shelf. Oh my God, it is going to be heavy now, like crazily heavy. I do have some drainage trays as well, which I will absolutely keep up there, because I think watering it, taking it down to water each time might be a little bit difficult. But yeah, hopefully that has just set the plant up for success even more so, because it is an absolute beast of a plant nowadays. And then one of the other questions that I had that I can see here on the list was from one of you saying, my philodendrons aren't rooting in their moss poles, how can I encourage them to do so? And actually that's just reminded me, one of the things that I wanted to do today was with one of my philodendrons on a moss pole, so let me just grab it. Yeah, so my Philodendron Majestic here, which as you can see has lost quite a lot of leaves at the bottom, is growing off its moss pole and sizing up beautifully. And this is one that I really hope to chop and extend. However, it's rooted at a few points. It hasn't rooted at all of the points that I was hoping it would. And right at the top here, without extending the moss pole even more, I'm like, it's not gonna, like, I don't think that's enough for it to really be able to root into. So typically, if a philodendron or any plant isn't rooting into the moss pole, I would say, obviously, if you're keeping your moss pole really hydrated, if you've tied it to the pole, you can just use cling film or something to just kind of like seal the moisture in, and often that's enough to keep the, like, start the aerial roots. And I think that is what I'm going to do in this case, because really, when I chop this plant, I would ideally like to conserve this top section of growth just here, and then probably wet stick the rest here. I'm not sure, but yeah, that's the bit that I'm going to want to keep. So I'm going to just get some cling film, and I am just going to air layer that top section and hope that in the next couple of weeks that starts to put out some lovely aerial roots. So yeah, some of these points have actually started to grip on, but this top section, as I can see, is just a little bit wobbly. Ooh, very wobbly in fact. And often what I've done, in fact, just to keep my moss poles hydrated if I'm going away on holiday or something, is actually kind of wrap the whole moss pole in cling film, and that just really helps to contain the moisture. That is something that you can do as well, just to get the aerial roots going a little bit, because sometimes it's just that even if the moisture's there, before they kind of detect it, they can just remain a little bit dormant, but actually by just kind of like containing it, that can just get them going. Yeah, I'm literally just gonna wrap sphagnum moss around this node there, and then use the cling film to seal it in place. And as I say, assuming I keep that nice and hydrated, I would really hope that in the next few weeks I'll have some roots, and then I can chop it, and then I can get it going again as a much bigger plant. That has been the goal since I first got this plant. So hopefully that will do the trick now, because just look how gorgeous that is. Isn't that beautiful? I love this plant so much. I wanted to keep all my moss pole plants on this wall as well, because then it just allows scope for them to just grow and grow and grow. I know it looks a little bit bare at the moment, but I'm thinking, like, for example, with my Monstera dubia, which is hanging, the main section is hanging up there at the moment. If I want to get that going, then I've got lots of wall space to be able to just let the plants grow big and beautiful and hopefully reach their full potential. I'm so excited to be able to actually bring out the best in so many of my plants that I feel like I just haven't been, I don't know, I've been a bit limited with in the space that I've been in. So yeah, I've got so many plans. But I think for today, just because I can kind of feel my voice going, and I don't want to wait to the point that I'm ridiculously croaky, I think I might leave it here. But yeah, that was so fun. It was so fun actually being able to do stuff in my plant space and not be like falling over things and bashing into things and all sorts. It was just so lovely. So yeah, thank you guys for doing plant care with me. And as well, I just want to say thank you so much for all your lovely comments and messages since I've moved house. I'm doing my best to get back to everyone, but it has just been so nice. Oh my God, Yoli, you're on the sofa. You know you're not supposed to be there. You naughty girl. But yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.
G'day sexy plant lovers.